Hope everyone is doing well. We'd like to thank those who sponsored this drasha, Marsha Nitzkasden, in memory of Marsha's brother, Chaim Yishai ben Dov Berish, Zichron Levracha, his neshama she'heaven aliyah, Vivian and Arnie Kirschenbaum, to commemorate the 13th yahrzeit of Vivian's mother, Berta Morgenstern, Brina Bas Chaim Tzvi, the yahrzeit's on the 5th of Tammuz, neshama she'heaven aliyah, and Bev Morris and Art Boyers sponsor in honor of the graduation Kiddush to Go volunteers, particularly the leaders, Barbara Price, Carol Lazar, Simi Franco, and Danit Cannell. Thank you very much to them, and of course the volunteers. And Bev Morris and Art Boyers have also sponsored in honor of Fran and Alan Broder on their recent anniversary. Mazel tov to them. I also want to note that we as a shul want to wish Mazel tov to Chaim Schnittman and his parents. Chaim would have been celebrating his bar mitzvah and shul with us this Shabbos, and we wish him and his parents a mazel tov, and he should go mechayel uchoyel from one great thing to the next. Mazel tov. There's a striking pasuk in this week's parsha. Just as the earth is about to open up and swallow Korach and Dasan and Aviram, Moshe urged the people to separate themselves from this group. And it says in the pasuk, "V'dasan v'aviram yatsu nitzavim pesach oleihem." Dasan and Aviram came out, presumably to confront Moshe in some way, by the opening of their tents. Unshehem uvnehem v'tapam. Their wives came with them, their children came with them, and even their babies came with them. Their entire families came along. And the implication, of course, is that when the earth opened up, all of these individuals got swallowed up by the earth. And Rashi cites a fascinating medrash. The medrash says, Bara'e kamakasha machlokes. Goes to show you how grave, how severe the repercussions of dispute are. Sharei Bezdin Shomata Ein Onshin Elad Shiyavi Shtei Saros. A rabbinic court can't punish until a person is at least bar bat mitzvah. Ubezdin Shomalad Esum Shana, the famous idea of the heavenly court doesn't punish till a person reaches the age of 20. And what does God do here? God punishes not only Dasan and Aviram, not only their spouses, not only their families, but even sucklings from their families are punished. And that doesn't fit with the normal model of age of punishment. So the Medrash says the reason why there was punishment for these very young children is because the punishment was for a dispute. Of course, there's a whole topic that opens up from this in terms of understanding how punishments and calamities can befall young people, and we really don't begin to understand these things. But the Medrash is making a very striking point that the fact that the punishment of the very young is emphasized, is clarified in the pasuk, implies that the repercussions for dispute, even compared to other sins, are uniquely severe. But the question, of course, is why should that be the case? I mean, we understand dispute is not a nice thing, but a lot of sins are bad. A lot of poor character is serious. So surely there are many answers given to this question. I'd like to share with you two answers given by the Maral. One answer given by the Maral, which I don't want to spend a lot of time on in this discussion, but just an interesting thing to think about. He suggests that the intent of the Medrash is, it's not that these young sucklings are formally punished by God because of the dispute. What it is something else, because God doesn't punish from his heavenly court under the age of 20. What the point is that when someone is involved in a dispute, their life gets turned upside down. Their life becomes torture. And so the idea is that it just naturally comes about being that the punishment not only hits Dasan and Aviram, not only hits their spouses, not only hits their adult children, it even hits their very young children, because that's what dispute does. That when people are involved in a dispute, forget what the formal punishment is or isn't. When people are involved in a dispute, it ruins the life. And it ruins the life of the individual involved in the dispute, and so many times it ruins the lives of those around that person. It's a very powerful thing to think about. Unfortunately, surely we can all think of anecdotes, things that we've witnessed over the years that fit with this tragically. But on a basic level, to understand that when a person is so wrapped up in an argument, they can't get their mind off of the argument. They can't sleep well at night. They can't walk down the street with a feeling of serenity, because maybe they'll bump into the person and what will they do and what will they say? It never ends. That's one idea that the Maharal talks about. But what I'd really like to reflect on for a few minutes is the second answer of the Maharal. And the Maharal says that it actually is midah keneged midah, measure for measure. Because what it is to be involved in a machlokes, what it is to be involved in a dispute, is to be absolutely focused on din, on the letter of the law. I said one thing, you said another thing, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm in the right. And it's not only that I'm going to tell you what I think, I will fight you until the bitter end. Why will I fight you until the bitter end? I'll fight you until the bitter end because I'm standing up for my rights, and I am in the right and you are in the wrong, and I'll never give up. When you really think about it, that's what it means to be in a dispute. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's normal approach is that if someone's under the age of 20, there's not punishment for sins. God looks the other way. Even though, of course, from the age of bar or bas mitzvah, they're commanded. But if a person is going to be such a stickler for what they see to be correct, that they'll get into a real dispute with another person, with another entity over it. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, if that's going to be your approach, I can play the same game. I don't have to overlook things. I'll fight you. I'll punish you to the end. I'll punish you to the nth degree, to anyone associated with you. Yes, I normally overlook such things for people of such and such an age, but not this time. That's the Maharal's second answer. It's midah keneged midah, measure for measure. And I think this is a very worthwhile thing to reflect on. Just ask yourself the following situation. Imagine you saw two people engaged in a dispute. Maybe you yourself were involved in the dispute. And you had to figure out who was at fault in the dispute. So let's put cliches aside. Takes two to tango. Beautiful, wonderful cliche. Great. We were yotze that. Let's put it off to the side. What do we really think? So I don't know about you, but my natural instinct when I see two people involved in a dispute, or let's say I myself am involved in something, whether I should think this way or not, I think to myself, okay, who's right and who's wrong? And whoever I decide is wrong, the dispute is their fault. Because the person who's right is correct. It's the person who's incorrect, who's involved in the dispute, they should just give up. If you think about this point of the Maharal, he's disagreeing with that premise. The Maharal is saying a very interesting thing. The Maharal is saying that to be a stickler for being right is not the way we're supposed to be as people. And that means that even if I am correct, if I'm allowing this argument or causing this argument to continue to live on for the sake of my being correct or not giving up that fact, then I'm at fault too. Now, obviously, if a person is being a stickler, and not only are they being a stickler, but they're not even right about what they're being a stickler about, that's even more severe. But the core of the point seems to be that you were a person who was focused on din. You were a person focused on I'm right or I'm wrong. If I'm right, you're wrong, and let's argue about it. And that's not the way we're supposed to be. Obviously, there are times in life that we know what's right and we have to stand up for what's right. And this parsha is a classic example. Korach was making an argument with Moshe. Moshe didn't give up. Moshe didn't roll over. Moshe saw it as his fundamental responsibility as being the prophet of God to stand up for the authenticity of that which he had been instructed by God and that which he had related to the Jewish people, and he wasn't going to give an inch. But presumably, that wasn't about Moshe. That was about his role as leader of the Bnei Israel and as the vehicle for the instructions from God to the Bnei Israel. But as a general idea, when we're involved in disputes that are not about a lofty principle, but are about, I think this way, you think that way, we really have to ask ourselves, can we step away from it? You know, it's interesting. I'll just give you a very simple mushal for a moment. Imagine walking into shul, and you have a makom kavua, a set place, and you walk in and there's someone sitting in your seat. What would you do? So there are people who are very particular about their seat, and hopefully they do it in a nice way, but they come and they tell the person, no, you're in my seat. There are people like that. I think most of us probably would just shrug our shoulders and find another place to sit. Now, if I were to ask you, do I have a right to ask the person to move out of my seat? The answer is, of course I have a right to ask the person to move out of my seat. It's my seat. So why don't I? Well, the reason why I don't is I say to myself, I've got other things to worry about in my life. In the end of the day, if I sit one row over, 3 rows back, it's fine. It's not worth it. It's not worth the awkwardness. It's not worth embarrassing this other person. It's just not worth any of it. And I think we can all relate to that concept, whether or not the example resonates with us. We all have things in our lives. It's just not worth it. And then all of a sudden, we all have things in our lives that if someone were to counter us on that front, we would fight till the end. Hopefully, we would all do it for principles that are very important and that would be our responsibility to stand up for what's right. But I'm pretty confident that most, if not all of us, would sometimes do it for things that are not so lofty. And to try to reflect on this idea, to try to reflect on this midah, on this character trait of being a mavater. In the elementary schools, they talk to children about being a mavater all the time. All the time. And this idea is of giving in, and it seems like a very nice, cute thing to do. It takes tremendous strength of spirit to really truly be a mavater. But the idea of this morale is that all of us have the capacity, when enmeshed in a dispute, to just say to ourselves, I don't have to be right. Even if I know that I'm right, I could step back. And I think this is a powerful idea to think about any time of year, any situation. But in the general circumstances in which we find ourselves now, I think it really behooves us to think about it. There are so many changes from that which we're used to. And we don't deal well with change. And when things change, whether it be on an institutional level, numerous institutions in this community, whether it be on a personal level, there's always going to be different opinions as to how things should really be. And we're thinking, feeling people, and many things in our lives are important to us. And many of us most likely have strong opinions about how things should be. And many times in these weeks and months, we have found our strong opinions being countered by someone else's strong opinion. How do we react to that? How do we react to that? So the natural thing to do is to get very involved in a dispute and to say to myself, I'm right. I have a right to be in this, and I'm not going to give in. The lesson of this second answer of the morale is that even if I am right, I don't have to always be a stickler for being right. To ask myself sometimes, if I were to just walk away, doesn't mean I have to agree. I can still think I'm right and they're wrong. But can I just give in? Can I just walk away from the dispute? If I can do that, I've done a great, great thing. And by the way, the next level of that is to try to appreciate where the other party is coming from. Not only to not fight with them, but in my heart of hearts to say, first of all, to say, I can only assume that they mean the best and they mean well, and we're just having an honest to goodness difference of opinion. But the next level is to really try to understand where they're coming from. Maybe they're right. In a time where there's so much confusion and so much anxiety and stress and worry, to truly be a mavatir, to be mavir al midosov, to overlook when I feel someone has wronged me, could be a remarkable merit for each and every one of us, our families, our friends, our community, Klal Yisrael in the world. Thanks so much for listening to me share these thoughts, and have a wonderful Shabbos. Take care.